Welcome to Leadership Rediscovered. I'm your host, Laura Siebold, and today I am very excited to be joined by Krista Goodrich. Krista started her career in finance, climbing the proverbial corporate ladder to become a national accounts manager at an international mutual fund company. In this role, she was in charge of educating brokers about various financial investments and built an extensive background in 529 plans and retirement plans, specifically 401k plans. Krista has been an advisor for portions of the NBA Players Association's 401k plan, fascinating, and helped to train rookie NBA players on how to effectively manage their money. She was also the advisor for the Spanx 401k plan and Sarah Blakely's endowment funds. So cool. After leaving corporate America, Krista became a serial entrepreneur. Krista has started numerous companies, including a trucking company, trash hauling company, package and supply company, and thrift store. She is the founder of the Masterpiece Mixers franchise, which franchised 20 locations on the Eastern Seaboard. She is currently either the part owner or owner of the following businesses: the world's most famous brewery, Daytona, Hop Cycles, Goodrich International Properties, the Boss Lady Investor book and online courses. Krista's also a motivational speaker, and she's known as the Airbnb and short-term rental encyclopedia for Central Florida. Krista actively invests in real estate and loves helping others to do the same. Krista leveled up her own wealth by investing in short and long-term rentals and currently owns 17 residential properties and 1 commercial property. Krista is part owner of A Salty Dog Vacations, a vacation rental management company focused on great guest experiences and maximized owner revenue. Her company is one of the fastest growing vacation management companies in the country. Additionally, she is part owner of Coastal Ventures, a long-term property management company. Krista is the author of the Boss Lady Investor book and is currently working on the Boss Lady Real Estate Investor book. She hosts 2 podcasts, the Boss Lady Investor podcast, which focuses on highlighting women that are entrepreneurs, financial savvy, and just generally amazing at life. And she also hosts the 4 seasons of Vacation Rental Investing podcast. Krista's life mission is to help women gain the confidence they need to take charge of their lives in all aspects, but to not be afraid of the financial aspects. That being said, she also works with numerous men to do the same and loves helping all people reach their financial goals. In her free time, Krista is actively involved in the community and has served or currently serves on numerous boards. She's also active in a variety of organizations. She's also very charitable and philanthropic, which she does not elect to share in her bio, but I do know this about her. Krista loves traveling, writing, investing, wakeboarding, boating, learning foreign languages, running, lifting weights, dancing, diving, and hanging out with her 2 dogs, 1 daughter, and smoking hot but super sweet husband. Krista, thank you for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me. You know I'm super excited to be
I
here.
know, this is going to be so much fun. Okay, your story is so fascinating. So the bio only touches on that journey from when you had your first job out of college to what you do now. So can we just start there and dive deeper? Because you've had 60 businesses. I mean, serial entrepreneur.
Yeah. So whenever people are like, so what do you do? I'm like, I don't know how to answer it, honestly. I really don't. I struggle with this. I'm like, I practice at home. I'm like, what do I do?
How do I say this?
Yeah. And serial entrepreneur is such a used word nowadays that when I say it, I don't want people to think, I don't know how to explain what I do. But anyway, so my journey after college, I was the first person in my family to graduate college. And I did graduate in 3 years with 2 degrees.
Holy smokes.
So my degrees were in economics and French.
Okay.
But no one in my family had graduated college, so after college, I didn't know what to do. So my actual first job was Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Nice.
And they had a good managerial program.
They do.
They do.
It's a great
they really do.
program. Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, I'll start here. I don't know where else to go.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I was an economics major, you don't learn a lot about the stock market as an economics major. So I was doing a great job at Enterprise. I take pride in everything I do. I figure if you're going to spend your time doing something, do it great, right? So I had a guy come in after about a year of being there. It wasn't quite a year, but he came in and the car that he rented wasn't available. So I said, hold on. There was a Cadillac Escalade available, but it was dirty. So I'm in full business suit. This is back when you wore pantyhose.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
Yes.
Closed-toed shoes,
Yes.
like all of that was required, right?
Uh-huh.
So in my pantyhose and my business suit with my shoulder pads.
That's such a good visual.
Yes,
right
it
now.
was. And it was like a weird purple color, but
Yeah.
anyway, whatever. So I was like, hold on, I'll be right back. So he sees me go out the front door, hop in the Escalade. I go in the back. Well, in the back, we had the car washing station. And we normally had 2 guys that were back there, but they weren't there.
Oh,
And he needed
gosh.
his car now.
Yeah.
So back there, I'm vacuuming out the car in my business suit. I'm sweating. It's Georgia. It's hot. And the back door opens. Well, he's in the lobby. He can see me out there doing this.
Oh, my gosh.
So I bring the car back around, straighten my hair up. I come inside
Yeah.
and I'm like, your car's ready for you.
Like magic.
Yeah. And he's like, did you just go clean the car? And I was like, yeah, I'm sorry. The car. And so anyway, we got talking. His name was Bob. And he said, I'd been, at this point, I'd been applying at like CNN and all these places. And for no political anything there. I just was starting applying at every company in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Right. That was a bigger company, Coca-Cola, Home Depot.
Yeah.
I really wanted a job with this company out in Mountain View, California, but they never called me.
Aw.
And
They're lost.
that was, I still look at them sometimes. I'm like, why didn't you call me? So anyway, so Bob starts telling me about that he is the national accounts director of a mutual fund company.
Oh.
And he said, why don't you come in and interview? And I'm like, that'd be great. I didn't know what a mutual fund was.
Right.
So I was like, okay. So I went in and interviewed. And luckily, the human resource lady had been a Kappa Delta.
Oh.
I had been a Kappa Delta in college. I didn't mention to her that I dropped out after 6 months.
No.
So
Minor detail.
yeah. So she was like, this is great. Like, and
Aw.
so I got hired. And when I started working there, I was probably the only non-Ivy League graduate.
Yeah.
And it was just a stroke of work. My work ethic showed in what I was
For
doing.
sure.
I was intelligent enough to have good conversations with Bob, and then I interviewed well. So came in, and a lot of these people, I don't know if they did or not, but it felt like they all had this massive financial education. And
Mm.
we had this file cabinet where the top cabinet flipped up. I don't know if you
Mhm.
remember those, if they still
Yes.
exist. And when you flipped it up, it was all books about finance. And it was like The Stock Market for Dummies was one of
Wow.
I think it was the first book I read. So
That's a good place to start.
it was, because that was true.
I know regression analysis, but I do not know about mutual
Yes,
funds.
exactly. So I start reading it and I start devouring everything. And my job, I started as a marketing associate. So that was basically like
Okay.
fill in an Excel spreadsheet with
Yeah.
the market numbers for the day. So I start learning. There's 3 or 4 of us that were associates, and we'd occasionally get phone calls. And so long story short, I started to get noticed by some of the other people in the office that were above us. And when a position came open for the next step up, which is called an internal wholesaler, there was 3 guys looking for internal wholesalers, and they all asked for me.
Wow.
So I got assigned to one, and we had a great friendship. And we covered 8 states in the West. So he lived in Denver,
Okay.
and I lived in Atlanta. And then I would go out 3 or 4 times a year and meet with the clients that I set up his appointments for, and just continued to educate myself constantly. So I became
Mhm.
pretty knowledgeable. Well, one of his clients was out of Phoenix
Mhm.
and managed, I'm going to mess this up, I don't know, a basketball team or a hockey team. I forget which one it is.
It's an important sports team.
A very important sports team. I'm certain basketball. So the Denver Nuggets, I think they're basketball, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
And he also managed the San Antonio Spurs, which was
Okay.
the biggest one.
Yeah.
Yes. And they're
know that one.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and this was when they had, I don't follow basketball, so maybe they still do,
Yeah.
but they had a really, really good team. So I was tasked with starting to manage a portion of the 401k plan. So the 401k plan has many facets, especially a plan that size. And the National Basketball Players Association, back then, it's been a long time, but that was focused on the new kids at 18 to 23 years old, got these giant windfalls. And through no fault of their own, they didn't know how to manage that money.
Right.
So I had to teach them all the things that I had just learned myself,
Yeah.
basically, So they were great, though. And there were some, I'm not going to name their names because I don't know if I can, but some of them were great. There was one of the players' wives. She was lovely. They were just lovely, nice people. They were not anything of what I thought.
Yeah.
you
Or
know?
what you might imagine from
Yeah,
watching TV
yeah.
and
And
all that.
I'm sure there's people like that, but my
Yeah.
guys were great. They were
Aw.
the ones that would call me. They were
Yeah.
interested in learning. They were interested in providing for their families, protecting their assets.
Yeah.
The ones that didn't call might have been out having fun,
Right.
So
Probably should have called.
yeah, definitely. So, but the one wife, she would call me all the time, and she'd be like, I hate to ask, but can you mail me 10 more of those stress balls? We love those things. And they're these little, just tiny
Yeah, sure.
stress balls that said Enterprise Mutual Funds on them,
Yeah.
So eventually I got promoted to national accounts, and then through a variety of different career path changes, I ended up eventually at Morgan Stanley.
Okay.
And at Morgan Stanley, one of my business partners there had been working with the Spanx account, but she was too big of a producer for that account. Imagine that.
Wow.
So she said, hey, they're all young girls your age. Would you be interested? Well, fun fact, I was a finalist on Richard Branson's Quest for the Best.
No, that's not in the bio.
Well, because I didn't get picked.
But that's super cool.
Sarah Blakely got picked.
Oh,
She beat me.
Gosh.
And so it was really cool when they did the whole interview process. I didn't make it to the show. I made it. So there's like 3 stages of it, whatever. And the first interview was at $3 Cafe in Buckhead, Georgia. And you would go in. I mean, there's hundreds of people trying out.
Yeah.
And you'd go in. I drove down there by myself. And my friends thought I was crazy. And I remember they asked a very triggering question to the group. And it was a very diverse group. And everyone gave the answer that you're supposed to give, the politically correct answer.
Yeah.
And I had a different opinion, and I shared it. So, and we argued, and I thought, oh man, I've really made everyone mad. I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to be hurtful. I'm a very kind person. Yeah, just honest, And so the producers left, and they came back in, and they said, we need everyone to leave except my last name was Dowling at the time. So they came and they said, we'd like you to move on to the next round. So anyway, we moved on to these different rounds, and then the final, when they chose the 20 people to go to England to start the show or whatnot, I was made aware that I had not made it. So I was all disappointed. I'm like, who beat me? Who was cooler than me? And then I watched the show, and it's Sarah Blakely. And I'm like, I mean, come on.
All right.
Like, I get it. She's like the first female billionaire, like whatever. Like, I guess that's fine. So, so then when I had the opportunity, I was a fangirl at that point,
for sure.
So when I had the opportunity, so Spanx is located in Atlanta.
I don't think I realized that.
Yeah, their headquarters is there, and it's in a beautiful building. Well, again, this is a long time ago, but it was in a very beautiful building. Sarah Blakely, from what I saw, and I didn't interact with her very much. It was, I mean, she'd say hi kind of thing.
Yeah.
I worked mostly with human resources and the people in charge of their benefits programs.
Right.
So, but she was, and her counterpart, the person that ran the company with her, was also a woman, and she may have taken it over. And she was, what we talked about, maybe it wasn't you and I that talked about, but she was very direct. She was very focused. She was, and I always remember thinking, I bet she's one of those women that people, women, we get, if you're tough, if you're direct, if you're focused, there's an assumption that you're a word association with that,
and
right?
it's not bossy. It's a different word.
It's a different one. Right. So,
yes.
But she was running this multi-million-dollar empire. And I just thought it was so cool, their relationship, because Sarah was able to be the friendly, behind the scenes. There was someone really powerful doing a lot of the work.
Yeah.
Their staff was significantly dominated by women, of course. And it was cool. You'd go in, first time I went there to meet everyone, a lot of really intelligent women. They had a really good program, and their women were driven. They were focused on growing their wealth. I mean, I looked at some of their 401k accounts, and I'm like, you're 30?
Wow.
And they'd done great.
Wow.
So, but they took me back. This is the best part of the story. This is really the part everyone likes. I went back into the back room, and they were like, pick whatever you want. And I was like, I'm going to look so skinny.
All the arms can hold.
Yeah. And they had just come out with Brawley-Luya.
Oh,
and
my gosh.
it was like the Brawley-Luya, just straight up, I did everything you wanted it to
You
do.
grabbed everything you could.
Yeah, it was right when they'd come out with their Spanx for Men line and all this stuff. So yeah, I did work there. And I had a sad story was when I was working with the NBA, that was before Spanx.
Yeah.
I was invited to, every year they have a convention in the Caribbean. Lucky for them.
Ooh.
I guess it's in there every year. I'm not really sure. But they invited me, and they're like, hey, we want you to come down and be on one of the boats. And each boat has its different, it wasn't a sponsor because I didn't have to pay to be there.
Yeah.
But a different person that we work with. And so you can just have casual conversation with the guys and let them know, what they're investing in, explain it more so that's more of a, not just a business conversation every time. So they start to enjoy it. I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. I was much younger. I didn't mind being in a bathing suit back then.
Right.
Well, I still minded, but less. Less. So I was married to my first husband, and I came home. I'm like, listen to this awesome opportunity. I was so excited. And he sat there, and he looked at me, and he said, no. And I was like, what do you mean no? He's like, I'm not letting my wife go and hang out on a yacht in the Caribbean with all the National Basketball Association players. And I'm like, but I'm not going to do anything. Like, I'm not.
Right.
And he's like, well, you don't know if they are. I'm like, well, but I'm not. Like,
Right.
so,
Right.
I mean, I'm going to be on the boat and then I'm going to go back to my room and
Yeah.
I'm not going to put myself in a
This is a
bad
really cool
situation. Like,
opportunity.
yeah, I'll make
Yeah.
so many cool connections here. And I honored his request, we'll say.
Mhm.
And I've regretted it every day of my life since then. I think that would have been a really neat experience. And I know myself. So I wasn't going to put myself in a bad situation.
Yep.
And if some guys made comments or whatever, that's reality wherever you are, you know? So that's just, some people think that's appropriate. It's not.
It's not, but I
But
mean,
it
it's nothing
happens
you haven't
regardless.
handled before.
Yeah, and I certainly can handle it, in any situation. But
Mhm.
cool thing is, several years later, that same advisor that had connected me with the 401k the NBA situation, he called me and he's like, "Hey, you want to go to the All-Star basketball game?" I'm like, "Yeah, I love basketball." So
That's your team, right?
yeah, exactly. Like I've been following.
Yes, I love hockey.
Yeah, right. So I went to the All-Star game in Atlanta,
That's so
and I was married to
cool.
my second husband at that point because it'd been a while. And Bill Clinton and Britney Spears were there.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm a huge Britney Spears fan. I'm so sorry that she's where she is now, but I loved her. So I was
Yeah.
so like, it was really cool that she was
Another
there.
fangirl. Yeah.
Yeah, and we got to go to the after party and stuff. And I
That's
didn't
so
interact
cool.
with them. I only
Yeah.
saw Clinton. Like I only knew he was there because you saw the chaos of it.
Right.
But I remember I was the shortest female at the after party.
And you're not short.
I'm not short. And I was literally looking up because all
Yeah.
the WNBA players were there and stuff. And I'm like,
Oh
and my husband at the time, I think he was 5'11", 6 foot,
Yeah.
and he was the other shortest person there.
Yeah, I love it.
So it was funny.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So
So how did you get from, because I mean that you had a really cool career.
Mhm.
So, you would probably, some people listening to this say,
Why
"Oh
leave that?"
gosh, why
Mhm.
leave that?" So when was that jump to all of these businesses?
So the first time I left, so I left twice, but the first time I left, I had just closed one of the biggest deals our company ever had. I'd gotten us an account out of UBS Paine-Webber.
Oh,
It
yep.
was just
Yep.
Paine-Webber back then, but
Yes, I was a customer of Paine-Webber.
Yeah.
I remember.
they
Yeah.
had not ever talked to our firm in like 15 years, and I
Wow.
was obsessively annoying enough to the account rep that
I
so we had to
love
make a certain number of cold calls a day.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Oh, I hate cold
Oh, it was
calls.
terrible, terrible. But I did it.
Yeah.
And so I just made a game out of it. And I'd just
Yeah.
call and I'd be like, the guy's name was Jason. I'd be like, hey, and he never answered, ever.
Right.
But if I left a 60-second long message, it counted towards my cold calls.
There you
So
go.
I figured that out. And I was like, hey, Jason, it's Krista again. I'm down here in Atlanta. I know you guys are in New York. I haven't been to New York. Is it snowing up there? What's it like there? And I just leave these long,
As the clock's
rambling,
ticking.
yeah, like literally rambling long messages.
I ate eggs
And-
for breakfast.
Yeah, and then at the end I'd be like, well, just so you know, I have to hit a certain number of calls. So this time next week, I'll be calling you again. And I literally did that.
I love it.
And because I thought it was so stupid that we had a cold call, but it
Yeah.
worked. It sadly
It does
hated
work.
that they
yeah.
were right. But so I did it, and maybe 6 weeks into it, he picked up the phone, and because it was actually like an answering machine. I feel so old when I say things like that. But he picked up the phone and he was like, okay, you're annoying. And I was like, yeah, I know, but you answered, you picked up the phone. And so we developed a friendship. And
Oh my
and then I
gosh.
said, listen, I don't care if you actually work with us.
Yeah.
Will you just do me a favor? When I call you on Monday, just answer.
Yes.
Let's talk for 60 seconds. And
I
then we
can
don't
count it.
Yeah. So I hit my
Yes.
numbers, we're good. And long story short, it eventually worked. And so we ended up
That's
and I
hilarious.
didn't do it for it to work. It just
Right.
it worked, right? So after that happened, my next position that I would have been promoted to would have involved, and it did already involve, quite a bit of travel,
Mm-hmm.
which I loved. But I got a phone call from my mom, and she said, you need to come to her office.
Mm-hmm.
We're having a family meeting. And I was like, oh, I'm so busy. And she's like,
Yeah.
no. And we don't call family meetings. We're not like a family that has
Yeah.
family meetings ever. I don't think we've ever had one before then.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, we're having a family meeting and you need to come.
Oh.
Well, a little backup in the story is my sister was married. And at this point, I was not married.
Okay.
And it was in between 1 and 2. And my sister had heard, like, my dream is to travel the world, to have all these companies. I've always
Mhm.
wanted that. My sister's dream was to have as many children as possible. She has 6.
Oh my
Been very
gosh.
successful at that.
Wow. Yeah,
yeah.
she hit that goal.
Yeah, she was making scrapbooks when we were like 8 and 11 of
Aw.
like, she knew her son's name would be Keegan before she was 10 years old. And her
Oh
first
my
son's name is
gosh.
Keegan. So anyway, but she had been married and was trying to get pregnant, and she'd had 6 miscarriages. And this is before she had her first child. And so we got word during this time, or she got word, I hadn't really paid attention, that there was a distant relative that the parents were incarcerated and are going to be incarcerated, and there may be a situation where she needs a family. And if Kelly couldn't have children, this would be a great opportunity. So I'd heard a little bit about it, but I'd be like, okay, that's cool. I'll be an aunt, whatever.
Right.
I was not planning on having children. I never intended to have children. So knew I was going to be career focused. I knew I was going to travel. And so it didn't make sense.
Fit the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I was helping my sister with population control.
I was going to say, yeah, you're the offset for her 6, right?
Yeah. So anyway, I go to this family meeting and I'm in a swivel chair.
Yeah.
And we're all sitting around, my brother, my mom, my sister, my dad, and my sister's husband. And I'm just spinning around this chair as they're telling the story about this little girl that's in West Palm Beach. And the biological parents was my mom's half brother that none of us really knew. And the bio dad was a crack dealer, and bio mom was a crack user. So it's a symbiotic relationship, right?
Yeah.
And turns out that's not really a good environment for a child.
No, not recommended. No.
But it's also hard to take parental rights.
Yes.
So this amazing DFACS worker, Patrick, Department of Family and Children's Services, I know it's called different things, different places, but Patrick had somehow found my mom and knew that there was a relative somewhere that seemed to be sober.
Okay.
So he got in touch with my mom, and they planned on Kelly taking the child. And so I get to the family meeting. Well, in the meantime, it took several years. My sister is now 5 months pregnant with her first child.
Oh, boy.
So I'm in my swivel chair spinning around, and my mom's telling the story about this little girl. I'm like, oh, that's so nice.
Yeah,
and then my mom said,
here?
yeah. My mom goes, and so, Krista, we've made some decisions. My mom's very bossy.
I love it.
And she said, we made some decisions, and we actually think that you'd be the best one to take Tiana. And I literally, my chair stopped, and I'm like, am I getting punked? Like,
yes, it's a joke.
What? Why? Why would you think that? You know? And this is the best answer ever. Are you ready? So my mom, who I am very, very close with, she said, well, because of all of us, you're the only one that could, she's going to be a foster kid for a while. We're not sure if she's going to actually be able to be adopted.
Yeah.
So you're the only one in our family that could take a child and give her back and not feel bad about it.
Such a winning endorsement.
Well,
thanks.
I sat there for a minute and I said, oh, you're right. Good point.
Yeah.
And I was like, that makes sense.
It's a very logical decision.
It's totally logical,
process.
like heartless, but logical,
sure.
you know? So
Yeah.
I had the resources to take care of her. I had just bought a house not too long before that had 2 guest bedrooms. And
makes sense.
An off-air story, I'll tell you about that at the beginning because there's a funny story with that, but I'm not going to tell it on this. Anyway, so my mom was like, yeah, well, we think you should. So the plan was I was going to have her I was going to be her foster parent for 6 months while the courts figured it out, and then we'd reassess. Well, 5 days before I was going down to West Palm Beach with my mom to go meet her and have her meet her father in prison and have him sign off on her and all that stuff, my best friend was killed in a car accident. And he had called me 38 times that night to come pick him up from the bar.
Oh, my God.
And I slept through every phone call because it was right down the street from my house.
Yeah.
And then he died. And he got in a car with someone else that had been drinking, and they rolled, and he was killed. So it was a very difficult time. So Tiana was my angel. So 5 days later, I got her, and she saved me as much as I saved her. And when my mom said, oh, you'd be able to give her back, I can tell you 3 minutes into being with Tiana, and she's very familiar with this story. And she was lived it, you know, but she was 6 at the time. So she was pretty aware.
Okay, I was curious how old she was.
Yeah, she was 6, and she was a very street smart 6.
Yeah.
So I told my mom, I'm like, there's not a chance on this planet. Like, they can fight me all they want. I will move to another country. They're not getting her back. She's not living in that environment. And I love her, and I'm keeping her. She is my child. And so Tiana's half Hispanic, but if you meet us and talk to us, there's no one ever questions. They're shocked when I tell them that she's adopted. She is mini me. Aww. Except for she's got way more attitude than I do. And she's not as responsible with money. But
she's getting there.
She's young. She's young.
She's young. Yeah. She's got time.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's when that happened, I was single parent.
Yeah.
My then husband, well, he was my boyfriend at the time, but he was guest of the state or the federal government, we'll say, during that period of my life. So also that was a big struggle for me, is that was
Right.
going on in my life too, and I'm trying to bring this child into a better situation, and
Yeah.
so anyway, so I had to quit my job, and I went in and said, "Listen, I'm I have to leave. I've got to do this." And they offered me to go on disability for a long time. They offered me a bunch of different options,
I
and I
bet.
just said, "Let me think about it." And
Mhm.
I for 6 weeks I did go on disability, and I felt horrible every single day or week that 2 weeks, whatever I got those checks, because it
Mhm.
wasn't me. I didn't need that. It was
Yeah.
nice, but
Right.
I needed to figure out what I was going to do next is what I need
Yes.
to be focused on. And like when you give someone money like that, it makes it easier to not.
Right.
So, anyway, so I just called the human resource lady and I said, "Listen, and the CEO called me. I mean, I said, if I decide to come back, I'll let you know, but I've got to do this
Yeah.
right now. Because like I said, if I'm
Yeah.
going to do something, I'm going
Right.
to do it wholeheartedly,
Right.
and I couldn't be like, peace out, kid. I'm going to go be in,
Yeah.
Denver training some
Right.
football or NBA
I'm
players.
gonna go on a yacht.
Yeah. Like it just wouldn't work out that way. So
Yeah.
that's how I left corporate America.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
in fairness, I didn't like the corporate side of corporate America.
Were you
So
willing to share why? Like, what about it?
I didn't like the restrictions on it.
Mhm.
I have a creativity side
Mhm.
that I'm not I used to think I'm not super creative. I can in certain ways I'm super creative, in certain ways I'm not. But you couldn't really use much creativity,
Yeah.
and I would do things that were I was in sales. So I'd send out like a
Mhm.
email to 50 people without sending it through compliance.
Yeah.
Apparently, that's not allowed.
Right. Which, I
But it's
mean,
a
best
really
of
good email.
intentions and
Yeah, and I got
yeah.
accounts out of it. They didn't turn that
Right.
down,
Right.
So there was certain things that it was nothing against corporate. They have to. And I understand as my companies
Yeah.
grow bigger, you can't a joking conversation that you have when there's a three-person office can
Yes.
turn into a lawsuit in a corporate
Yes.
environment.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I guess it can in a small environment too,
Right.
but less likely. So those aspects of
Yep.
it I didn't really like. There was still stock market 20, 25 years ago was still predominantly men, and it probably
Mhm.
still is,
Mhm.
but all of my co the people that did similar jobs to me, when
Yeah.
their reps would come in town for conferences and stuff, they'd take them all to the strip club.
Um.
So my reps would come in town, and one time I actually took them in my purple business suit.
Right.
Seriously, because I felt like I had to, and I actually don't. I don't care if people go to that or not. I'm
Right.
not. I don't have a big judgment on that, but
Right.
it wasn't really how I wanted to develop my relationships with my clients.
Yes.
And I remember I was golfing one time with two really nice clients that we had. Of course I learned to golf because it was
Oh,
corporate,
yeah,
and so
you
you
have
have to
to.
learn to golf.
Yeah.
Again, for the same reason of my other coworkers were taking when their people would come in town, they'd take them
Take
for
'em.
a round
Yeah.
of golf. I didn't
Mhm.
want them to feel like they got the shaft, my clients, because I
Right.
was their rep and we weren't going to go golfing and everyone else in town was. So I
Yeah.
learned how to golf, but I remember we were golfing on this really cool course, and the two reps, lovely guys, but I was new to it, and they kept
Yeah.
saying, "Elbows in, elbows in." So I was listening, and so if you visually put your elbows in, it creates
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
a change in the way your body looks.
Yeah.
And it didn't dawn on me really until a few
Right.
minutes in. They kept saying, "Elbows in, elbows," and it was like so aggressive that I was like,
What's going on here?
yeah, and it
Yeah.
was funny, it was cute and all, but it just continually made me realize that there was always that underlying tone of that.
Mhm.
And I was changing it because
Yeah.
I was tomboy, and so I could easily
Yeah.
develop some of those relationships and just say, "Look," like with those
Knock
guys,
it
I'm like,
off.
"Yeah, just don't be an
Yeah.
idiot. Like, how would you feel if this was your wife and two guys were taking her out golfing?
Yeah.
How would
Would
you
you
feel
want
about that?"
that?
And usually people
Yeah.
are cool when you bring it to their attention,
Yeah.
but some of them weren't. So I didn't like that. Um, I don't know. The politics of corporate. There
Mhm.
was two divisions. Everything was awesome, but then there was this one guy and it wasn't a division I worked for, but his office was right near mine. And I think, well, and one guy in my division, I think like they were on a mission to try to bring me down
Mm.
in some ways. I don't think it was
Mhm.
like their sole mission. I just think it was a mission.
Right.
But I got promoted so quickly and I was so young in the job I had that there was some animosity,
Mhm.
not from the women. I
Mm.
will say, I
Mm.
thought it would be from the women.
Yeah.
It was never. Not one single woman in that office
Hmm.
ever was anything but supportive and promoted me
Wow.
forward and was like, "Girl, if you got it, go."
Yeah.
And there was, six of us, but
Yeah.
but a couple of the men were not as pleased by it,
Yeah.
and I just didn't like that. I also had a 51-mile each direction commute.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't
That's
like
not fun
that.
either.
Yeah, this is way
Yeah.
before work from home.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
your emails are monitored. that I
It's
don't
just
I don't have find my friend, your friend, whoever your friend is on my phone.
yeah.
And I know that everyone's like, "Oh, well, if something happens, we can find you." I'm not trying to hide anything.
Right.
I just don't. It's creepy to me.
Right, yeah.
I'm betting that I've got an Apple iPhone. If something happens,
Someone
someone
can
can find
find
me,
me.
but
Yeah.
I don't need everyone to know, oh, Krista's on Main Street right now. That's
Yes.
weird to me. Everyone does it, but
I
it's
know.
weird. And everyone's like, well, when Tiana was 14-ish,
Yeah.
that's kind of when it came out, and all the moms put it on their kids' phones.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Tiana, I'm not going to put that on your phone. And the other moms were like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
What if she's doing something bad? Well, then she's a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
She's got to make her own decisions and her own mistakes. And if she's doing something bad at 2 a.m., I'm not finding her anyway because I'm sleeping. So,
I'm not up looking.
Yeah. And I certainly don't have enough time in my day to be like, 1224 Senior Avenue? Whose house is that? Oh, do we know this man? Let me research him on Facebook. Like, I just don't have the time for that.
Going on. Yeah.
Right. But there's moms that did.
Yeah.
And there's moms that just felt, if that's what makes them comfortable,
Yeah.
I'm cool with it. My sister certainly has it on all of her children.
Yes.
They have it on her. I think they have it on all her friends.
She's just I'd be like counting all day
Yeah,
long with that many.
she's probably around
All
her
6
cats.
accounted for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somewhere.
So anyway, so that's how
That's amazing. Well, and I appreciate you answering that question because I do think it's interesting. Serial entrepreneur is used a lot, and glamour-sized, my
Yep.
word I created,
Yep.
I think,
Yep.
the other day. But just being an entrepreneur is too. And there's things about it that I think to people can be very glamorous. But I also think it's really interesting to see if there's more of a type or a profile for who elects to be an entrepreneur versus, operate in more of a corporate or, perhaps more structured environment. And it does seem to me that there is a little bit of a type in terms of, listen, I kind of have ideas about the way I want to do things or the way I want to go. And I need, to not feel like I'm maybe handcuffed or my
I'm the
wings are
world's
clipped.
worst employee. I am. A lot of people that I work with are like, I'd like to hire you. And I'm like, no, you wouldn't.
No.
You like me because of the job I do now. You would not like me in that. And I'm very clear on that.
Yeah.
My husband is very good at corporate.
Yeah.
He likes the systems.
Mhm.
He likes that you are there at this time and this is what you
Mhm.
do. And he's always early and stays late. I mean, he's a workaholic, but he looks at me sometimes and he's like, you're just a massiff chaos. I'm like, I know, but isn't it fun?
Isn't it great? Yeah.
So
What could be better?
what could be
than
better? But
chaos.
there's people that could never.
Yeah.
It would make them very uncomfortable.
Yes.
And just as uncomfortable as it makes me to be so, it's just different personalities.
It is different.
So, and
yeah.
I think if you're an entrepreneur that like goes in and like has a business plan and all the things you're supposed to do and develops a
Yeah.
business and grows it, you can be that type of corporate person
Mhm.
and be that type of entrepreneur.
Yes.
When it becomes serial entrepreneurship, my biggest role model in that world would be Richard Branson.
Yeah.
And he's not that corporate. He's more
all about
blah.
bucking the trends.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
being creative and shaking things up. Challenging the status quo. Which So talk about what you're doing now, because you've got, even just with all the businesses that you've had, I know some you've maintained, some you've exited. But in terms of what you're doing now, because I just think you're set up. Like, what's a typical day in the life for you? I know there's probably no typical
There's no
day,
typical day.
but like what
What do I
where
do?
do you spend the majority of your time?
Majority?
Yeah.
I don't know that there's a majority. Probably trying to figure out how to get my staff to do everything I want them to do, and not understanding that everyone doesn't want to work 24/7.
Yeah.
Which they would wholeheartedly back that up and be like, yeah, she does not understand that. So I spend a lot of time, sadly nowadays, in meetings. I try to avoid it. Meetings are, I'm learning to like them more because there's a reason for them. You have to
Yes.
communicate with the crew. And
Yes.
I had a lot of businesses where I was very singular in what I ran, so I didn't have to have that kind of communication.
Yeah.
So now it's me really working on not just giving people the reins that they need to go do their job, but then also following up with them, because
Yes.
sometimes they need that follow up.
Yes.
So a lot of that, but a typical day, I could be anything from the janitor
Mm-hmm.
to the CEO at a gala.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of days it's everything in
All.
between. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I have a presentation that I give that it says entrepreneurship. This is what everyone thinks entrepreneurship looks like. And it's this like lady on a yacht, like chilling, enjoying her life.
Uh-huh.
And then a screen comes up and it says, this is what it actually looks like. And it's me with a hat backwards, tank top on, plunging a toilet in the bar. And that's really what it
reality.
is, you know? So,
washing cars for people.
yeah, like people will say, well, you know, you've got people for that. Well, I do, and sometimes I don't. So if the toilet needs to be plunged, I know how to use a plunger.
Yes.
I could be like, I'm so good, I'm going to call a plumber. Or I could plunge the toilet.
Yeah.
I could say to my staff, who maybe they do, maybe they don't, but they're also at that particular situation, they were tending bar.
Yeah.
I happened to have stopped in.
Right.
Excuse me, could you not serve that customer so that I don't have to plunge a toilet?
Exactly.
I mean, I'm just not going to do that, you know?
No.
So I'm a very hands-on entrepreneur. I could be decorating an investment property that's either mine or one of my clients. That's my favorite thing that I do now is decorating. And that's funny because I was not inclined.
But that's your maybe creative side.
That is my creative side. And 15, 20 years ago, you would have said no one will ever pay you to decorate anything in your life. And
this gives me hope because I'm not good at decorating.
Like when I lived in Georgia, so I'm not a good Georgia decorator. Well, my farm's really cute. Yeah. I'm a very good theme decorator.
Got it.
I don't go gaudy with it. I don't go crazy with it, but I can take a theme and amplify it.
You can do a theme. Okay.
Yeah. Then I've got a focal
point.
A good
theme.
Yeah. But to just make it like Southern living, I'm not good at that theme.
No.
So in my neighborhood in Georgia, everyone was like so good at it. And they had magnolias everywhere and all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't even know what colors to paint my wall, you know? So I paid someone to come tell me what colors to paint my wall.
Yeah.
And so, but now in Florida, I'm a very desired decorator. Yeah. You know, I don't have time to decorate all the people I could decorate for.
Yeah.
So it's just funny how things change.
It is.
And I'm a chameleon. I can adjust to 1, what works.
Yep.
2, what provides people joy. And 3, what provides me joy.
Yeah.
And hopefully it provides me money, but it doesn't always. No. Sometimes it doesn't.
No. And you got to figure out whether you're okay with that or not.
Yep. And there's some things I do that don't pay me at all. And I'm okay with it, you know, and there's some things that I wouldn't do it unless it paid me a fortune.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, again, I could be doing a podcast. I could be working on the book. I could be working on the website. That's what we've been working on a lot. So we've got a web designer, but I'm the content person because it's my company. It's what I want to put out there. And then one of my sales girl, who is phenomenal, we've just launched this new platform that it's a 6-month to get new larger home clients for vacation rental. So we're working on the different campaigns and it's very systematized.
Oh, that's cool.
So she's good at systematized. I'm good at giving her ideas for it. And so we work on that. We've got our long-term division developed because of our short-term division. They're separate companies because of some legal rules involving that. And so I'm trying to manage the long-term side, which isn't my passion. Yeah. But I have owners that I'm really good at making people money in real estate.
Love it.
I'm very good at that.
That's awesome.
And so some owners, as the market shift, rather than say, well, it's a vacation rental. I love vacation rentals. That's my favorite thing. That's my number one passion. I'm so blessed to have ended up in this space. I remember being 21 years old at my first vacation rental thinking, gosh, I'd like to own a place like this one day. So
and now you do.
And now I do. And did not ever expect that I actually would.
Right.
But for my clients, if they have a vacation rental and the market could be going into a recession, I don't know if it's oversold or not, but whatever happens, they've got to be chameleons too.
Right.
So we created the long-term division so that we could help clients that have both vacation rentals and long-term.
Okay.
And so that if the market shifts, we have an immediate solution. Yeah. They're not scrambling to go find a new property manager. They like us.
Yeah.
So, but that's not my passion on that side. So I've got to train someone to make it their passion.
Yes.
So there's a lot of that going on. Kim and I do a lot of reporting. We do a lot of data management and we've grown without ever advertising. So we've never advertised to this.
Oh my gosh.
Well, to about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And we're only advertising so we can more pinpoint the kind of the clients we want more than just everyone. So we've been doing a lot of data research and we actually are. So in Daytona, if you pull the vacation rental market, what's neat is when you look at the data, we are 25% of the data.
Oh, wow.
So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Now that being said, of property management, there's individual Airbnb owners and whatnot that don't account in there. So we're not 25% of the total market. We're 25% of the data.
Still, that's amazing.
Yeah. So that we do a lot of that. And then I do a lot of evening stuff. My day is 24/7.
24/7.
It's nonstop. It's the second I wake up. The second I get home, I frequently will change into whatever outfit's needed for that particular night. And it could be drinks with a client. It could be a
charity
event that you're wearing full formal wear. And so
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can tell you're passionate about it. Like it's just a part of your life. It's not,
Yeah.
you're not structured or maybe wired to be, okay, from the hours of 8 to 5, I do my day job. And then, my other life begins. I mean, you can tell it flows through you.
It's just my life.
Yeah.
I don't like again, everyone's different, so it's fine.
Yeah.
But the 9 to 5ers, I'm like, I have 2 friends, and if they listen to this, they'll know exactly who I'm talking about. They just got engaged, and I love them. They're really good friends, and they're wonderful people. They are 1,000% 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So Kim, my business partner and Salty Dog, her and I are eat, sleep, breathe.
Yeah.
I mean, this morning she was mad at me because she texted me at 10:55 last night and I didn't answer. So it's like she was literally mad at me this morning. I'm like, dude, I'm calling you at 7:14. Like,
right.
But she's a really nice person, not mad.
Yeah.
But so we laugh about it because our 2 buddies on Saturday, they're like, "Do you want to hang out?" And we're like, you do know what it's like to hang out with us, so we can go out on the boat, but we are bringing our laptops, and we like that. Like we don't.
Yes.
Like if we're sitting on the boat just laying there. And for those listening, I live in Florida, so I'm not boating in this cold weather. But if we're just laying there, my brain would be racing. I would be driven. I'd be crazy with all the things.
Be like, well, I need to write this down or type it out. Or,
I'd rather just do it and get it
Yeah.
done. And so people are like, "How do you do so many things?" It's because that's always my approach. Just do it and get it done.
Yeah.
And I handwrite a list.
Yep.
Sometimes I'll text myself of these are the things I need to accomplish, especially not every day, but when I'm getting overloaded. And then I just tick them off and I stay focused. I am one of the few people that will just turn off my phone. And I still I don't have text notifications turned on.
What?
I don't. I never have. I never have.
Okay.
And it's because it's such a distraction.
Yeah.
It's such a distraction. If I'm working on, let's say I'm working on writing the book, even at 6:00 in the morning, because that's usually when the time I'd have to work on the book. If Kim texts me and says, "Hey, did you see whatever?" Well, no, but now I did. What's going on? And so
and it totally breaks your train of thought.
It does.
Yeah.
And so to get things done, now what I'll do is when I get something checked off, I'll look at the 745 text messages and I'll answer as many as I can. And then at the end of each day, when I lay down in bed, I do go back through and make sure I got to everyone I needed to get to.
Yep.
Or if I didn't, respond and say, "Sorry, long day. I'll answer you tomorrow."
Thank you for joining this episode of Leadership Rediscovered. Krista has such an incredible story, and we have only just scratched the surface. So please join in for part 2 to finish the story.